reality as it is, and then basking, laying back in it and floating in it the way one can float on the water.
I think that the danger in this kind of thinking, in my experience, is that you end up not doing anything. Like, I don't know anything. So then, where do you go from there? So I think at some point you have to stop being in that space, and you have to say, okay, fine, but based on the limited knowledge I have, I'm going to move forward.
Yeah.
And I think that my experience with Sufism is it's very good on everything except for the moving forward. And like we're learning in Suluko, now we're in realization. But I think it did the first part of it very well.
Well, this wasn't just a sentence, the abandoning of the worldly ideal, the abandoning of the heavenly ideal, the abandonment of the divine ideal, and the abandonment of abandonment. Well, that was easy. Done. He's actually describing a critical process that a person is actually going through, and there's a belief in how the world is, and then crash, it came down, and then I built a new belief. And I worked with that, and I worked with that, and I worked with that, and that crashed. And then I worked with, what came into the foundations, that were built out of that. And then, so, I mean, it's describing a whole real process. So it's not like, we just skip to the abandonment of abandonment. So I'm floating in that water, and I said, no, I've gone to the abandonment of abandonment. And I'm just floating in the water. It's not long before, a boat crashes into my head. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm in the world.
But I think there is a good question still. That's, I'm more familiar with the analog in Buddhism. The emphasis is on liberation from delusion, and then people and there isn't so much discussion about the good world to participate in and to engage in.
Mm-hmm.
What? Yeah, Buddhism doesn't have tikkun olam in the same way. Of course, there's evolving now. It's repairing the world, fixing the world, very closely related to co-creation with God.
Mm-hmm.
And active engagement. Of course, now there's evolving engaged Buddhism. But if I'm hearing you're suggesting that if one is focusing primarily on kind of disabusing yourself of your illusions about everything, then what's the basis for an active, meaningful life in the world? And that's a good question. Here's the answer.
I don't know anyone here or there. I don't know anyone like that yet. And it's just, that's the point where you are the beloved. You are the love, lover, and beloved. You move through the world from a different force. It's not what we would think. They have to do something. It's done.
But the result, though, for a lot of people is they get caught in that space and don't create. They forget to be co-creators. They become, like very ineffective.
Ineffective in what way?
Ineffective in the world. They can, we can debate it, but I see evidence of people. I call it la-la land, or So you have one extreme. You've got people in the business world doing, and forgetting the inner world. Then you have other people. Abandonment to whatever degree that they're at. It may not be complete, but it's this letting go, which has its point, but then you have to step out of that and go back into life. And I think that's where sometimes Sufism is forgetful. But that's not realization.
I'm thinking that you become a servant of God. Like, you're there.
And humanity.
And it's...
Well, we have fana. Fana is the annihilation of existence, of the ego. But then there's baka, which follows it, which means like subsistence, meaning there was something that was taken from that experience of annihilation that is now seated in my being, and I'm still alive in the world. and I need to apply that. So, we don't just talk about fana, we talk about fana and baka. And the implication is, so what will you do with it? How is your experience of the world transformed? I saw that it was all divine. And then I came back, and I was a jerk. And that's what we often see.
I sat around and smoked pot.
Then I let up a spliff, That's often what we have. That's a spiritual bypassing that is often happening, Oh, it's all one, But, do you know what so-and-so did to me? And then we just get into this kind of blaming again, and it's all divine. Well, if it's all divine, then treat somebody like they're divine. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be mad at them, And it doesn't mean that what they're doing is not, if we maybe we'll avoid saying wrong, but we'll say not helpful. And can I work with them saying, you know what, we're all part of one body. But these cells in this one body need to speak to each other. And remembering that that's a divine being with whom you're engaging can change the nature of the experience and the outcome of that, of that experience. And that's what we're talking about with fana and baka. And when we're talking about this breaking down of illusions of reality, the worldly ideal, the heavenly ideal, the divine ideal, that is not a pleasant process. When you lose your divine ideal that you held for so long. That is also the breakdown of a personal ideal, and your own personality breaks down when that divine ideal breaks down. And that is not a process of like getting into a more blissful la la land state, where it's all divine, it's all divine. That's painful. And where you're really getting with that, if you're really staying close to it and not opting out of the emotional disappointment that happens with it, but staying close to that, is that there's a maturation that's happening. That I see, say in an earlier state where I had a divine ideal about the goodness of God and the meaningfulness of all the things that happen, and it's all for a purpose, And then, so-and-so gets hit by a bus, and I know that they, were not in a good place in their lives, and they're just dead. I'm like, it's all for a purpose? I don't know that. I don't know that at all. And then my life gets hit by a bus, and my life falls apart. And people say to me, it's all for a purpose, and I want to smack them. Because I don't know that at all. That is there's a bit of garbage spirituality there, that all for a purpose. We don't know that. On reflection, we can sometimes look back and go, whoa, there's a really interesting pattern there. I don't know if that means that it was all meaningful, but it looks kind of meaningful. That's different than saying it's all for a purpose. We don't actually know. And especially in the moment, we don't actually know.
Remember what Hazrat and I said about the eye? You have an eye, and then you realize what it's for. So the purpose comes after the creation. So it's kind of like, well, we have this experience, and we can look back and we can find a purpose.
Yeah, it's reflective. It's on reflection. And you can't give that reflection to somebody. And it's insulting to them.
When I was trained in aromatherapy or any kind of body work, there's a big difference when you come into the room and you have an intention of being with that person, of knowing that it's not coming from you, that it's coming from a larger experience, that it's coming from a larger energy, And when that clicks, it's like a Mobius strip. You don't get tired. And there's a transformation, that intention. And it takes a lifetime to get there, to understand that anybody that comes, and their clothes is off. I mean, it's like, whoa, that this is a sacred transaction. It's a whole different thing if I go into like a clinic and I'm doing a medical massage. It's a whole different experience for both of us. And that's what we're talking about, the transformation and that growth, that, you know, that's the realization. Now you're becoming a real human being with that soul. Those souls are working together. You're creating something.
Becoming a real human being or a complete human being, the insan al-kamil, the complete human being, a mensch. The mensch is a great word. Mensch is a great word because you know what it means?
Human being.
Human being. And so when we call somebody a mensch, and we say it like they're an elevated being, well, but it's true. But what it's reflecting is that most of us are just acting like smart animals. That person is being a human being. They're living up to what it means to be a human being. And the rest of us, maybe not so much. So it's a great word. And that's also what's meant by insan al-kamil, the complete human being. The complete human being who's going through this process of breaking down of various ideals is being both crushed by life, but every time they get back up, they accept more of life, even its ugliness, and they embrace it. They say, oh, it's not all beautiful, but I still love it, you know? And that's like that in relationships. Whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, ultimately there's disappointments because we've seen the person's ideal, and that's what we fall in love with, you know, with their potential, which for a moment we get a glimpse of it. The veil is removed and we see that person in all their fullness. But then that's not who we're in a relationship with. We're in a relationship with a person who's got issues and they're not acting in all their fullness all the time. And then we slowly accept those things. Or we find out that we can't accept those things. But in a strong love relationship, you accept a lot. You find, oh, there's room for them to not be perfect. And that's the relationship we're in with life also. Or we cut off from it.
I had a hard time, like, when we were doing the Buddhism, was it last Tuesday or something like that, or Thursday? And it was like, whoa. There was, what's that called? Superstition, using belief in God as power, you know, that, oh, I could do that, you know, I could manipulate this thing because I got God on my side or something like that. That was interesting because, you know, the Buddhists, they say, well, we don't believe in God. You know, we believe in God, but we don't, that's not the issue. The issue is how do I present myself at this present moment? And exactly like what faculties am I bringing to this moment? And learning and experiencing and practicing. And it's like, that's an existential thing. Especially from a Christian background. It's like, whoa. Because, you know, by the blood of Christ I'm saved and I'm going to heaven. That's you're brought up from little. And that was like, oh. So that brought up my superstition. That you're using this very falsely. But it was, you know, pounded into you by the catechism.
Yeah, it was very revealing to myself when I started to go, how? By the blood of Christ, how was I saved?
Yeah.
How did it wash my sins away? I don't know.
It's like, wow. I mean, that's the beginning, you know, that's the stairs that you or the ladder, you know, the first rungs, but it's like, yeah.
So truth is that which cannot be fully spoken. And that which can be spoken is not necessarily the truth. So let me just finish up with you just answers two questions from people that are present. What is the benefit of believing in, loving, or knowing God? Answer. The belief in God kindles in human beings God's love. And where the flame of love arises, the knowledge of God's being begins to unfold by itself. This awakens humanity from the slumber of ignorance and gives a real happiness and joy that nothing else in life can give. So, this is very interesting. The belief in God kindles in human beings God's love. So, belief is merely a kindler of God's love. So, the belief in God is merely an expedient to kindle God's love. And where is God's love? In us. And through that, and where the flame of love arises, the knowledge of God begins to unfold by itself. So we got it? The belief in God is merely a kindler of love in us. And that love teaches us what God actually is. That makes a lot of sense to me.
It touches a question I was hesitating to ask, which is the last Thursday class I came to was about a month ago. It included some discussion of the light, and I put it together with the Orient self-light, the infinite in the human being. And lately I've been wondering about the similar to this dialectical progression in belief and abandonment, about the development of the intellective soul in a human being as an expression of the light of the infinite. If our reason or our intellective soul is an expression of the light of the infinite, and if it develops through this kind of dialectical progression, God says, I do not change, I have not changed, but does the light of the infinite, or some level of its expression, develop and mature through our development, by means of our development, or how do people think about that? How do you think? Does it make sense as it related to this issue of the kindling of the love of God in the heart by our belief? It may not be the fact of our belief, but it's a very profound expedient.
Yeah, it's an interesting and a very difficult sort of question. But on the one hand, that our illuminating faculty, the faculty in us that has the possibility of going on and unfolding and learning and growing greater and greater, is an expression of the light of the infinite. So that torch within us is an expression of that. And that light can grow to fill our entire being so that we're beings of light, as it were. And then you seem to be saying, is that evolving over time, not just in the life cycle of one human being, but over time in the arc of human evolution, yes? So that something is being added to that light is unfolding. I think yes. I think from a certain perspective, we can demonstrate that consciousness is unfolding. That over time there's been building a critical mass of awareness through time. And part of it's that we can hold our history now, and we have a sense of that there is a arc of our existence, as a species, and that there does seem to be more awareness. that, as my teacher would put it, the Messiah is constantly coming for different aspects of humanity. So for basic slavery on the planet, the Messiah has come. We mostly have abandoned that sort of thing. It still exists in small pockets, but if we look at the arc of human history, there was this much, and now there's this much. And so the Messiah has almost come for that entirely. And so there's a clear something that we can demonstrate about growth in consciousness. So I think it is evolving, and yes, but that doesn't mean that we're contributing to it necessarily. I don't think I want to go further than that on this particular question. So, because I want to finish up.
I think a lot of times though we try to say, is it this or is it that, when really the answer is both.
Right. Thank you, Deborah Sue. You just sewed it up. So I'll just read you this last one because it's just interesting. Do Sufis believe in reincarnation? Answer: Sufis have no set belief or disbelief in anything, because both would be limitations. Divine light is the only sustenance of their soul, just constantly illuminating, constantly unfolding knowledge. We're in the unfolding, not in fixing in belief or disbelief. And through this light, they see their path clear, the torch. And what they see in this light, they believe. And what they do not see, they do not blindly believe. Yet they do not interfere with another person's belief or disbelief, thinking that perhaps that person may have a greater portion of light than me. I don't know. I can't tell them what they should believe or not believe. Or perhaps a lesser portion of light has kept another's sight dim, and they cannot see or believe as we believe, and I can't give them that light. Therefore, Sufis leave the belief and disbelief to the grade of evolution of every individual soul. The Murshid, or guide's work, is to kindle the fire in the heart and to light the torch of the soul of the murid, the seeker, and to let the murid believe or disbelieve as the murid chooses while journeying, taking the journey, suluk, through the path of evolution. So the Murshid's work is only to light the torch by which you will then light your own way. And they will not give you your beliefs or disbeliefs. You'll discover them with the torch that's been lit inside you. But in the end, all culminates in one belief. Huma man am, I am all that exists. All other beliefs being preparatory for this final conviction, which is called haq al-iman, the truth of faith in Sufi terminology. I am all that exists. And that I is not the limited I. It's the I that Al-Hallaj knows when he says, An al-haq, I am the truth. That my ego has been obliterated in the divine I. I am all that exists. There is in all that exists. That's where he ends. So since we went a little bit over, I just want to close. Thank you. Left hand over the right, right thumb over left, spread the fingers. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. So, shukran, thank you.